There's a lack of the knowledge of God in this world. And the reason why is because the human race has rebelled against the Creator. And humankind has set up all kinds of false gods, false philosophies, and these are contrary to the order of the universe. See, there is order to the universe, and God is at the very head. He is the supreme potentate. I like that word. We can call him the King, and Jesus Christ is called the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So there used to be, people don't understand who the king is, but they use anymore because we really don't have kings, do we? They're just like puppets. But it used to be a king had complete power over the government. And so he could dictate. Well, now we have democracies, right, where we can elect our representatives and then they make the laws that we live under. And actually, the whole concept of democracy is actually the Greeks had democracy. But it didn't work very well. Julius Caesar, he eventually took over, and then the Senate was just a puppet Senate, right? So democracies can survive for a while. But you guys are fortunate to live in a country that has Christian foundations, where our forefathers, actually they understood how evil governments could be. Have you guys ever heard of what democide is? Democide is death by government. It's kind of like the word genocide, right? More people die by government, the hands of government, than anything else. And in the last century, the socialists, who that's what they call themselves now, they actually were communists, murdered 120 million, somewhere in that range, people. Yet people still follow that philosophy. I have this article here. It's called "Socialism is Nothing But an Organized Crime Syndicate." And that is really true when you look at it. They get poor people to be greedy. See, whenever you motivate people with an immoral motive, it doesn't turn out good. When you do good works out of love and unselfishness, then it produces good results. But these people, these socialists, the Marxist socialists, what they do is they work on people's greed. They say, "Oh, somebody else has more money than you, so you should hire us. You should make us your leaders, and then we'll steal from them and give it to you," which never really happens. They just steal from them, and they impoverish the society. That happened over in, the modern example of that is Venezuela. You guys keep up on current events? Do you know what happened over there in Venezuela about 20 years ago? This guy named Maduro. Well, there was one guy who died of cancer, but the people actually elected this socialist government. And socialism is always godless, because they have this theory of atheism where they say that there is no God, and that religion is the opiate of the peoples. And what they meant by that is the drug. But in actuality, Marxism, socialism is a religion, and it's come out in the modern era, young people, in what we call woke. Woke is like a brand name. It's a branding, and it actually should be sound asleep, deaf, dumb, and blind. Because people who go woke, and then they have propaganda terms like diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is the opposite. In reality, it's the opposite of everything they say it is. It's not diverse, there's no equity, and there's no inclusion, except for their favorite groups. See, the groups they favor are the ones who reject the God of the Bible. They reject the morality of the Bible. That's what they favor. So you young people have a choice. Are you going to follow those who reject the Bible and God, the God of the Bible, your ancestors who built this nation that you live in, that you are receiving the blessings of life in a free country where people from all over the planet want to come here. Actually, what they should do is they should make their own societies. They should pattern them after our country, where government is limited so that government can't do evil. Because evil people, when they get power, they do evil, don't they? But if you limit their power, there's a balance of power, and that's why we have the three branches of government. And then we elect our representatives to make the laws that we live under. But today we're talking about God and his laws, right? We're not talking about politics. We're talking about the government of God. And there is a government of God, and it's not a theocracy. We're not talking about like over Iran, they tried to set up a theocracy, right? But it's an evil religion. That Islam is an evil religion. It's actually worshiping a false God. It's not the same God as the God of the Bible. People get that all mixed up all the time. Abraham knew absolutely nothing of Allah. Allah is a false God. Humans have been making false gods for the 6,000 years. Because if you don't want to obey the true God, then you create a false God, and then you can do whatever you want to do, right? Create yourself a false religion. So it's very confusing for your young people. But the good news is this, was the Bible tells us what happened in history. It tells us what happened in the history of the world and where things came from. The Bible has all the answers, young people. And that's why we're here. We want you to read the Bible. We want you to go to church to find out about God. Now, there's a problem with me advising that, because I understand that a lot of churches have problems. But you know, this university is a church. Did you know that? It's a church of a religion of godless, heathen, pagan, atheism, agnosticism. There's all kinds of religions here, but there's no Christian religion. There's no Christian teaching. Why? It's banned, supposedly because of separation of church and state. Boy, I tell you, they pulled the wool over our eyes. And now they want to victimize all you young people. And we want to rescue you. You guys are like swimming in a sea of sharks. We want to rescue you. Rescue your mind, rescue your thinking from the lie. And the Bible has the truth. The Church of Jesus Christ has the truth. And there's all kinds of people running around lying and deceiving and seducing young people. They want to seduce your mind first to get you thinking the way they think. We want to set your mind right to think the way your Creator thinks. And your Creator is the lover of your soul. You don't realize that. Because God has been slandered by the media, by entertainment. He's even been slandered by religious people who say they represent God. But actually, if you look at the Christians, they've done so much good in this world. They've rescued the world from barbarism, tribalism, and all these other things. If you look back in history, you guys study history much. Do you know what the ancient world was like? It was very difficult. Just us Europeans, we used to live in feudal societies. My ancestors were Europeans. And in a feudal society, you had the nobility, you had the kings and the nobles and the dukes and the duchesses and all that, right? So those people were basically like the socialists. They controlled the tax system. And the people were taxed to death. They were kept in poverty. They couldn't even wear colored clothing. Did you know that? They were walking around barefoot. And they were working themselves to their fingers to the bone. And then whenever the king or the noble wanted to go to war and expand his territory and conquer a neighboring duchy, then the people would have to, the farmers would have to give up their farm implements and have to go out to war for the king. Unfortunately, we don't live in a society like that, right? It's pretty good. So are you guys going to sign up for the draft when the draft comes? Yeah. Did you know the draft might be coming? Would you guys be able to fight a war? Do you have the strength and internal fortitude to fight in a war? All these guys have volunteered in the military, and then they went to Iraq. They're pretty amazing young men and women that did that. A lot of times it's because they couldn't get into college, and a lot of them were white people because they couldn't get in. They were kind of pushed out by other people that were not qualified or less qualified than them. And see, we need a colorblind society. We don't have one. We have a racist, a systemic racism that's going on. But it's not against minorities. It's against the majority. See, and Christianity was the first diverse culture in human history. Because before Christianity, everyone hated the other tribe because the other tribe was out to kill you. But Christianity taught people to love your enemy, do good to those who do evil to you, and that brought peace. I have an article here about making peace. Do you know who the peacemaker is? Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ can make peace in your heart. Jesus Christ wants to bring peace to your heart. Because see, we are at war. We are at war with God. We are at war with the government of God. We live in a society that's in rebellion against the government of God. We live in a culture. So even though America has Christian foundations and a Christian culture to some degree, we're abandoning that. We're abandoning it. There's an atheist guy named oh, thank you, sister. God bless you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so we're advising people to find Jesus and go to church and read your Bible and pray. These are good spiritual exercises. And you don't have to, go to my denomination. You can go to yours. The main thing, whatever it is. And in fact, you don't even have to go to church. You can just sit at home and read the Bible and gather together some other people and just, the Bible is there. We got Bibles all over the place. And they're amazing books. Like Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." You want me to break that down for you? The world says, "Blessed are the rich." Do you guys want to become rich? Because the word blessed means happy, right? It's part of what it means. And the world says the opposite of what Jesus said. Jesus taught the opposite of what the world around us teaches us. He said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." Have you guys ever mourned and been sad over something? We're emotional beings, and we often have these emotional swings, right? But we got good news for you, young people, that, God is there for you. When you're going through the hard times of life, feeling rejected by your friends and breaking up with a boyfriend or girlfriend or doing bad in your grades and stuff, you can go to God and pray. You can pray. Yeah, and God will comfort you because God is real. The God of the Bible, Yehovah, is his name. That's how you say his name. And then he came and revealed himself to the human race by taking on human nature. That's called the gospel, or the good news for the world. Now, I know you guys have heard a lot about religion, about the Christian religion and so on. So you guys kind of know that already. But I'm afraid that you have been taken advantage of and turned against the Christian faith, which is our healing, our health, our salvation. We really need Jesus. Every one of you young people need Jesus. And those who are trying to turn you against the Christian beliefs, they're predators. They want to prey upon your mind. They even want to prey upon your body. Yeah, they have no sexual restraint. That's one thing about people on the political left, or the Democrat Party, which has turned itself over to the devil. There's Republicans that have turned themselves over to the devil too. I'm not saying it just because you're a Democrat, that's the case, but the party has adopted abortion, which is murder. Oh, it's justified to kill. And then they've adopted sexual immorality, which they call the LGBTQ, where sexual license, where you can do anything you want to. And then they were flooding our country with drugs for 40, 50 years. And thank God President Trump has said, hey, we're stopping the flooding of our society with drugs. How many of the young people have taken drugs? Why do people take drugs? Because it produces pleasure. But the reason for living is not pleasure. Yeah, it's nice to have things that bring you pleasure, like if you drink a glass of water that brings you pleasure, and you got to drink water to live, right? And food brings pleasure. And then sex. There's nothing wrong with sex if it's in the confines of a marriage between a man and a woman. Sex produces children, and children make you happy. You ever hear that one? Children make you happy. So if you guys, you're young people making the decision, like, you be thinking about who you should be married to, not about who you should be having sex with. Marriage is a covenant commitment. See, our human nature, the way our human nature is you need love, you need security, you need commitment. You need someone to commit to and someone to commit to you. And so the Bible defines that, but cultures know that naturally. Any culture that rejects marriage ends up destroying itself. And history is replete with cultures that have done that. But on an individual basis, young people, marriage is a path to happiness. Yeah, you find someone that really loves you, and you can be secure in that love, and then the sexual union is pleasurable, and it produces children. God made it so it's pleasurable. He could have made it so it wasn't pleasurable at all, right? But people seek for pleasure as the ultimate goal of their lives. And that's why they get hooked on drugs, too. There's so much danger out there, young people. We're worried about you. The reason Phil and I, this is my friend Phil, and we're here because we love you guys. We really do. We love you from the depths of our hearts. And we want you to know the truth of God, which is so important for all of us to know. Yet you guys will say, oh, no, I don't need it. I don't need that. I already know these things. Well, you don't. There is so much to learn. And it will guide you in your life. It will guide you in your career. And we want you guys to succeed in your career. If you have a moral foundation, you are far more likely to succeed than if you don't. As a matter of fact, if you don't have a moral foundation, you're going to fail. It's not just scientific knowledge or skills, job skills and things like that. But I like to compliment you students. You guys are hard workers. You got a backpack full of books, and you got tests. I know you guys got anxiety. You got worries. You got all kinds of stuff going on in your lives, and we care about that too. But as you're walking by, we want you to think about your spiritual needs. Because you have spiritual needs. You need God. And the God of the Bible is the only true God. There's all kinds of human manufactured gods. See, the atheists are right. People make gods in their own image. But the true God made us in his own image. And he revealed himself to Abraham. You see that in the Bible. And this guy, Abraham, he lived in the time when people were worshiping all kinds of false deities. Yeah, God bless you. But the true God, you see, the ancient world around the time of the Babylon, all civilization come from Babylon. Did you know that? From Mesopotamia. That's where all civilization, that's the cradle, they call it the cradle civilization. It's because 4,500 years ago, which is a very long time, they always say, millions of years ago. There were no millions of years. God created time, space, and matter 6,000 years ago. Before that, there was no space. There was no planet Earth. There was no stars. God created it all. And the reason he created it, because he wanted to create beings like us, beings in his own image and likeness that were capable of having a relationship. That's why God made you, young lady, to have a relationship with him. God is perfect love, and he wanted to share his love with other creatures. But the problem is that, in order to love, you have to have free will. He didn't want to create a bunch of robots. We got all these robots being made now. What if you made a robot that would love you, right? That wouldn't be love. Love has to be a free will choice. So you have a choice of what you're going to love. And material things don't bring you happiness. Only God in the spirit can bring you happiness. God bless you, young man. I think you guys will like these booklets that Phil was handing out. We got some really interesting things, and they're kind of a good read, and we got some science booklets too. We got a bunch of science stuff here, like on dinosaurs and stuff, because there's all this fake science running around. Like, I think you'll like this one. See that dinosaur on there? Humans and dinosaurs walked together. Yes, they did. They didn't live 60 million years ago, and science keeps finding out more and more stuff, debunking the atheistic scientific system that's been developed over the last 200 years. See, all the scientists 200 years ago and older, they all believed in creation. They believed in the Bible. It was only, about the time of Charles Darwin. That's when all of this false science came forward, and it came out of the French Revolution. So that's why I tell people that there's a religion, it's called Western secularism or atheistic humanism, that runs this university, and our tax dollars are paying for it. I believe in the separation of church and state. How come we got a bunch of religious people running this university? But they say, we don't believe in God, so we're not a religion. Oh, yes, you are a religion, because you have a morality. And you brainwashed our youth in the last 20 years, from kindergarten up. I thought you were just brainwashing our youth in the college years, but now they're brainwashing the youth from K through 12. How come you have purple hair, young lady? Were you brainwashed? Yes. I like your hair. I think it's cute. But you need to be unbrainwashed. We need to kind of, what do they call it, deprogram you? Well, that's against your will. I would never deprogram somebody. But, because we're all free. And I just throw this stuff out there to get you guys thinking. And I want you to make the choice to make a step towards God. I want you to make the choice, like, I want to know my Creator. What's my purpose in life? God has a purpose for you, and it's far greater than what you think it is. God has given each of us talents and skills and abilities to contribute to the greater good. And when you find that talent and that ability and you tap into the source, which is God, then he'll teach you, he'll give you the moral foundation you need to do good, to be good. You want to be good? Being good is good, right? Being righteous. See, right versus wrong, or good versus evil. We all have choices, and we make choices daily. You make choice of, like, what kind of food you're going to have. What kind of food you going to have for lunch today, young man? You going to have a hamburger or a taco? Or Chinese food? We have lots of choices, don't we? But you also have the choice to decide what will be the moral guide of your life. The morality of a bunch of atheists who murdered 120 million people last century, or the morality of a teacher whose name was Jesus, who taught us that we should love one another, that we should forsake sin. Sin is a violation of God's moral law, and it's written in your conscience. You guys are, God, we don't have to have it written on tables of stone or ink and pen paper. Your conscience knows. You know, young man, when you are sinning. When you're sleeping with that woman that is not your wife, or if you're lying or cheating in class, people don't realize. You see, moral laws are very simple, actually. There's only 10 commandments. Pretty simple. God's laws are simple because God wants you to follow them. See, his bondage laws are extremely complicated and they're impossible to do because there's so many of them. It's like the IRS tax code. Nobody knows it. Did you guys know that you're lawbreakers all the time? You may not even know the laws you're breaking. But with God's law, you know. It's in your conscience. And I want to stimulate your conscience to start thinking. You have a moral responsibility towards God to love God back. Because God loves you and he loves all of us. And he's given us the rain today to water the land. And we should be grateful. And you should know who to be grateful to, right? Not to Buddha. Buddha's not a god. Buddha died. He is a man. He was a teacher. He's trying to teach people to improve themselves morally. There's a lot of good in a lot of these religions. But any philosophy or religion that doesn't actually lead you to the true creator is actually leading you away from him. And so that's why we're here. We're the messengers of God that God has sent so that you might hear and believe. So you have the ability to believe from your heart, to open your heart. It's important to open your heart. And the good news concerning Jesus Christ and concerning the God of the Bible and the Scriptures is good news. There's so much hope, you know. It tells us that we can conquer death through faith in Jesus Christ. You know, death is what holds all of us in bondage because all of us are going to die. I was reading about this triathlete woman down in Texas swimming in this shallow lake called Woodlands Lake, and it's only 8 feet deep, and she was doing this triathlete thing, and she drowned. And she was a social influencer that had like 60,000 people on her Instagram account. And she drowned. How did she drown? I don't know. Maybe another swimmer hit her in the head and knocked her out. But, you know, our lives are fragile. You need to be ready to meet God. If you're a rebel against God and breaking his commandments and hating God for no reason, just because all these old people are trying to brainwash you into hating God. I'm one of these old people that's trying to teach you to love God. There's a lot of old people out there, a lot of baby boomers you guys should not be following. Because when you love God, God gives you security and comfort. He promises us eternal life. And when we think of the term eternal life, we think of living forever, right? Because there's a progression of time. Time will just keep going. And you know, a lot of people think that Christians say time will come to an end. No, it won't. God created time. It's going to keep going. He created the world. The world is going to keep going. He said, blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the earth. And then he says, blessed are the meek. And he says the same thing. Do you want to inherit the earth? If you become a follower of Jesus Christ and you reject the evil of this present world, then you will inherit all things. How many of you guys are inheriting something from your parents? Now, your parents are probably still pretty young. They're probably in their 40s, right? Maybe 50s. But my kids are going to inherit a little bit of money from me. You know, most parents want to be able to give something to their kids. But some of you guys have really selfish parents. They don't want to give any of their money. They run around. They run around their motorhome and say, "We're spending our kids' inheritance." Have you seen that bumper sticker? But the Bible says you can inherit all things if you follow Christ and you go against the current of this world and you make a commitment to God's Son, Jesus Christ, then you will inherit all things. You'll become rich. Do you want to be rich? You can be rich. But you know, when you're rich in spiritual things, like when you have love and peace and joy in your life, that's wealth. That's worth more than money. Money is just a means of exchange and enables us to buy things or buy goods and services, right? And we need money in this world because people are selfish. But you know, in the world to come, the economy of the world to come, there won't be any money. So the Marxists will say that the money is evil, capitalism is evil. But really, those guys are evil. Marxists and socialists are evil. But money is kind of like lubricant. It causes the economy to work. And in a free enterprise system, people will lower the prices of the goods they're selling to make more money, see? But in a controlled economy, they don't. They just keep raising it, and you become poorer and poorer, and you're a slave, and you're living hand to mouth. And that's what you guys really are right now. I mean, just you guys should all be rich, because we live in the richest country in the world. But we have the bankers who've been stealing our money through inflation. You guys don't know anything about that, but I'll tell you about that. Very corrupt bankers. So there's all kinds of systems of theft. Thou shalt not steal, says the Bible. God says thou shalt not steal. How many of you guys use dishonest means of gaining wealth? Now, you guys you're old enough and you aren't smart enough to know how to do that yet. But us old people, we've kind of figured out how to rip off other people, right? When you take money from the government, you're actually stealing from your neighbor. Never take money from the government. Keep your integrity. I guess maybe if you're starving to death, maybe you should, instead of starving to death, maybe you should take a check from the government. But do it as a short a period of time as you possibly can, and then get a job and earn your money, right? But there's so many systems of theft in the world, and dishonesty and lack of integrity. They use that word equity, which in their definition means equal amounts to each person, but you should only be paid for what you earn, right? You know what a merit-based system is? If you work hard, you make more money. If you're honest, and you run your business well, and people like your business, and then you make more money. You're selling a good product. Like say you're selling coffee. How many of you guys want to start a coffee shop? How many young people want to start a business? How many just want to have a job working for a corporation? Actually, the way you can make the most money is by starting your own business and being independent. If you work for a corporation, they're only going to pay you the minimum they can get by with. As a matter of fact, what they'll do, you ever heard this thing called H-1B visas? That's where all the young people are being ripped off, all you young people, especially in the STEM, by immoral older people who aren't Christians. See, people who are Christians, they seek the benefit of others, and they seek the benefit of the younger people. They're not going to give jobs to foreigners, right? They're going to give jobs to American young people. What are you thinking, lady? Racist. Anyone who speaks the truth is a racist, right? Oh, that's good. Hi, good to see you again.